All right, we are live. Cool. So, hello and welcome to the Streamlit show once again, folks. And my name is Tony Kip Kimboy. I am the developer advocate for Streamlit at Snowflake. So, today I'm super excited to have another awesome guest with us today. We have Yi Ding from LlamaIndex, and excited to kind of jump into the exciting conversation happening today. So, how are you doing today, Yi?
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, it's nice. It's Friday. Hopefully, people are doing something fun for the weekend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd mentioned in in the previous post for folks jump in here before the happy hour. So this is the happy hour before the happy hour. So um, pretty cool. So we'll just kind of jump straight into the meat and potatoes of today's talk. So, but before we do that, I want to talk a bit about your background here. So you have a very interesting background to begin with. So you started your career up in Citadel, working as a financial technology associate.
Hmm.
For those who don't know, Citadel is one of the leading hedge funds, and you can correct me, one of the leading hedge funds in the world, actually. And after that, you became a high frequency trader.
Hmm.
And I have to also mention that you're probably the first high frequency trader I've talked to. So that's another cool thing. And you also ended up working at Apple as one of the founding members of the messaging app team,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. And then currently you're working at LlamaIndex as the head of TypeScript and partnerships. That's quite a journey there for you. Can you tell us a bit more about maybe what's even missing in your resume to begin with, or what's missing in your LinkedIn profile that we don't know about
Well,
you? That's pretty cool.
that's pretty good coverage. That's pretty good coverage. I've
All
always
right.
been interested in startups, and yeah, so Citadel, I'm legally obligated not to say anything bad about them. So, but it was a good learning experience for sure, and high frequency trading was a lot of fun. But I think like for why LlamaIndex, right? Is very few times in my career, right? It's only happened to me
Yeah.
twice, where you look at something come out and it's like everything that you have built is completely obsolete, right?
Wow.
So that happened to me once when I was an intern. I was an intern at this place called Palm. We made smartphones in
Yeah.
2006, and then 2007 the iPhone came out, and then like nobody was interested in Palm smartphones anymore. So
Yeah.
similarly, when I saw what could be done, January 23rd of this year, I went to a hackathon for like the first time in years. And when I saw what could be done with ChatGPT, I'm like, everything we were building chatbots for 7-8 years at Apple. Everything that
Yeah.
we were doing is now obsolete. Right now, like the chatbot's still there. I mean, you can use the one we built, or you can go to like Comcast or Best Buy, and if you do a side-by-side comparison between any of those chatbots and ChatGPT, you're like, which 6-year-old made these chatbots? Like, it's like we got a whole team of front end, back end, data scientists, and like people who are deep into AI, but it's like it feels so outdated
Yes.
that um, there's no going back. And so when I saw that was possible, I was like, okay, I have to get in on this.
Yeah.
And LlamaIndex obviously has an amazing open source community. Jerry and Simon are both very, very dedicated to open source and also to code quality and to building the best tool for developers. So I was like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I have to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean that's pretty exciting. Kind of looking at that, you've kind of noticed the trends where you see, you look at it, you're like, okay, man, this is transformational stuff, and it's time to make the next move here. And I find that pretty interesting as well. And Yeah, to your reference, yeah, chatbots of yesterday are definitely not anywhere close to today's chatbot. So it's wild. And I think the interesting part for me at least is like anybody can build this now. It's not like the previous one. So
Exactly.
um,
Exactly. Like
yeah,
literally you just take the Streamlit demo that Caroline built, and it's better than the stuff that we built with like all of our data, like
yeah,
years of engineering effort. It's like, it's crazy.
yeah, it is. It is. A lot to look forward to and interesting stuff. So kind of jumping into Llama Index now. So for maybe some people in my audience right now are wondering, yeah, what is Llama Index? I'm hearing this for the first time. Or they've heard it before, but they've just never had a definition of what Llama Index is. So could you kind of tell us what Llama Index
Yeah.
is?
So LlamaIndex is a data orchestration tool for large language models. So large language models like ChatGPT, um, Anthropic Claude. We're actually going to be showing some Google Gemini today. But we're a data orchestration tool, which means that we connect your data with the large language model. And we do that
Yep.
by connecting to the large language model. We connect it to the vector database, and we create a bunch of strategies for this thing called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So,
Yeah.
um, so why would you want to use LlamaIndex? Well, if you want to use LLMs with your data, right, then you would want to use LlamaIndex, right? If you want to build a chatbot that's like, talk like a pirate, you don't need to use LlamaIndex. But if your company has data, you have data on your customers, your customers are giving you data, then you need to use a data orchestration tool like LlamaIndex.
Awesome. So I worked as a data engineer before, and it kind of reminds me of a data pipeline. Basically,
Absolutely.
don't need to, yeah, you don't need to scrabble and build your own stuff from, reinvent the wheel here. There's already prepackaged stuff that you can just kind of load your data in and build some really awesome stuff with it.
Yeah,
So I find that pretty cool, and I'm glad we also have demos today to show people actually how this is possible to begin with and how they can build it, which is pretty cool. And just also want to remind the audience, if you have any questions for Yi and myself, please put them in the chat. Just put them in the chat, and we'll be able to fill some of these questions at the end. And with that, we'll just kind of jump straight to the demo. So we have like some really cool demos today to show everyone. The first one is the Streamlit chat pack, and this was built by Caroline. You had mentioned earlier, and it's under the Llama packs within LlamaHub at LlamaIndex. So maybe that's a bit confusing in a way for folks. Can you just explain what LlamaHub is within LlamaIndex and how folks can use that to build some of these applications we're talking about?
absolutely. So LlamaHub actually started as an independent project.
Okay.
The idea behind LlamaHub was really to say, okay, we are building applications with data and LLMs, right? Now we need all these different things like loading different documents, right? That's where it started, right? So you want to
Yeah.
load your Word document. How do you load your Word document? So what LlamaHub is it's a central source of loaders. And in fact, now we have support. So now you not only can you use it with LlamaIndex, you can use it with LangChain, you can use it with Embed Chain, you can use it with Vector Flow, you can use it with Semantic Kernel, you can use it with Haystack. So you can use it with pretty much every LM framework out there to say, well, I have some data in this format that's not text, right? Because the LLMs understand text, and well, now they understand images too, right?
Yes.
But I need to get that into the LLM. So LlamaHub started out as data loaders. Then we added tools. Now with Llama Packs, what it is it's really about, okay, well, I want to have Streamlit, right? I want my application to use Streamlit, right? I want my application to use a particular vector database, right?
Yes.
So let's make it really, really easy to integrate that into your application. And that's what these packs are. In some ways, it's really about just making it easier, which is like, this is what I admire so much about Streamlit, right? You all make it so easy to build
Yes.
anything on Streamlit. And so we're sort of taking inspiration from that to say, okay, how do we make things even more easy and intuitive to use with LlamaIndex?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that's kind of like that this is kind of the layer because we're the UI layer, and it's pretty easy for folks to integrate. And initially, you had mentioned RAG here, and maybe for folks, they're just like, okay, I heard this word, this acronym a lot, retrieval augmented generation. What is it?
Yeah. So I started using LMs January of this year, right? January 23rd. When I joined LlamaIndex, I came across these three words: retrieval augmented generation, and I
Yes.
didn't know what that was. Right? I already had a job. I already had a
Yeah.
task. I was already assigned a task, but I did not know what these three words were. I know what the word retrieval means, augmented means, and generation means, but I didn't know what they meant put together. And really, it's a really actually a really simple concept. It's three very long words for a very simple concept. What you're doing is you're just doing a search. You're doing a search for the most relevant data, right? The most relevant context. And then you
Yes.
take that and you give it to the LLM, like ChatGPT, and
Yes.
then you get back a more useful, relevant, non-hallucinating result. So it's just searching, giving it to the LLM, and then getting it back. Now, the question, of course, is then, well, we know how to search, right? Google's been around for, however long, and, I used AltaVista. I'm dating myself, right? Like, before that, right? And, like I can control F and I can find these things, right? So, like, why do I need to use LlamaIndex? Why do I need to use these fancy new tools? So,
Yeah.
the implementation of the search in LlamaIndex and in the vector databases is around what's called vector search. So the idea is it's not just keywords, right? It's not just like, picking out the words out of the sentence and finding matches, but also semantic meaning, right? So saying, well, if I ask, hey, what is this person's job? And there's another
Yeah.
sentence that says, this person does this work, even though there's no, though there's no overlap between those two, the semantic search with vectors can actually pull that out.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting concept, and you're not alone. When first time I saw them kind of being posted all over the place on social media, I thought to myself, now what is this? Like, it's RAG, yes, but I'm like, okay, retrieval augmented generation. I was like, okay, so like what? Like, it just felt so out of. It didn't feel very intuitive to me. I was like, well, like it was really hard to grasp. But I remember even one time actually pasting a whole blurb text and putting it into ChatGPT. Like, can you just Eli file this for me? Like, explain it like I was five, and it tried. I think I grasped a bit of it, but I think over time, kind of getting exposed to it, I kind of understood eventually what it means.
So first time we've said this in the world, we should change the acronym. It should just be called Better Output with Search, BOWS.
Yes, we're gonna trademark that. You need to trademark
Yes.
that. Nice. Yeah, so I think that kind of lays the foundation for the demo that I'm about to do right now, which for the Streamlit packs. And now that the audience hopefully has like an understanding of what this is, I'll go ahead and kind of fire up the demo here so we can see how it looks like in an application. So the demo will be about Streamlit Llama packs, or no, the Llama packs. It's called Streamlit. Let me just get this right first. It's let's see, entire screen. I have several screens here, so bear with me. All right, cool. Hopefully that's pretty clear. All right, so the application itself is within Llama Packs and within LlamaHub. So if you go to LlamaHub, and we'll get the link here going so everybody can see what we're talking about. So if you go to LlamaHub, and you can see the link under the screen right now. If you go there, you will see some of this extra stuff here looking like pills. So you got integrations, you got data loaders, agent tools, and some of this stuff Yi has talked about. But the one we are going to be demoing today will be under Llama Packs. And if you come here and just search Streamlit, and it should pop up Streamlit chatbot. And basically, what we talked about a bit here was, so Streamlit chatbot back. It kind of helps you fire up an app real quick, so you can think of it as a scaffolding, kind of making it easy for you to kind of get started with building RAG applications. And in this example, I'll kind of fire it up and get it going for you here in a sec. So I guess to lay it out a bit, some few things that you might need on your system, and I've tried it several ways. And for most folks, what I found was if you tried and you're just using your virtual, using not using a virtual environment, it might throw some errors. But if you do it on your system, sometimes it does, depending on how you do it. So in my case here, I'll go ahead and use a virtual environment to just kind of make things a bit simpler. And with that, let me just make sure my screen is big enough so that it's visible. And if you're wondering, this is just my terminal, and you can get it yours fired up as well if you want to follow along as well. So I think that's pretty clear. So what we want to do first, I want to activate this conda environment. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to create a folder within my directory here. It's going to be in my desktop. And this is where I'm going to download this Streamlit chat pack into and then fire it up and run it. So this is just make directory, and I'm going to name it something like LlamaHub. I'm just going to name it LlamaHub test. All right, and I'm going to change directory to LlamaHub once it's created. So that way we can just get going. And now we're in LlamaHub. And the next thing I want to do is create a virtual environment. And if this is the first time for you hearing what a virtual environment is, a quick rundown. So when you download a package, maybe pip install something in Python, most of the time it goes into your main global system. And sometimes you have another application that kind of depends on maybe a specific package version, maybe LlamaIndex version, I don't know, version, whatever, latest version or previous version. And you don't want those to clash and cause your other app to crash when you fire it up. So creating these virtual environments like a container for only that specific application that you're building. So everything kind of depends within that container. And that's what I did here. So now we just need to activate that virtual environment we just created. So there you go. And as you can see, it's active now. So the next thing we want to do is install the LlamaIndex package itself, because when we use the LlamaIndex CLI, which we'll be using to run this application, we need that LlamaIndex package. So we'll do pip, already copied it. So pip install LlamaIndex, and it's gonna download that. And then the next step would be now downloading the Streamlit chatbot pack to our system. All right. Cool. Now that's done. Now let's download the pack itself, the Streamlit chat pack. And this will take a minute as well. Let's wait for it to load. And while this is loading, for your prep, you need to have your API keys from OpenAI ready. And don't worry, I'm exposing this. I'll get rid of this, so don't even try to start copying it or whatever. So that's done as well. So we have our pack, and we can inspect it and see that we have that already downloaded. So if you list it, you can see we have it in our directory. So it's downloaded, it's right there. Now, the next step would be we need to export that and use the API key, have the API key within our environment. So we're able to, when we use the app, we're able to create a chat interface with it, communicate with LLM. So OpenAI, API key, and then I'm going to grab that API key from here, from OpenAI, and I'm going to paste it here. And that should be set. And the next thing from there is just to run the application itself. And usually with Streamlit, you have to do Streamlit run, and then you point it to the direction where the application is. In this case, it's right here in this directory. And the application running is under base.py. And there it is. The app is running now. And we'll give it a moment to load. And for context, LlamaIndex has LlamaHub. The LlamaHub has data loaders. And in this case, one of this that we're loading here is Wikipedia pages. And for this context, of course, we load a Snowflake Wikipedia page, and you're going to ask questions off from the context of the Wikipedia page that is available here for us today. And to get started, we have some questions here that we already kind of preset. So we're going to ask and see what it generates and gives us. So first of all, we'll do when does Snowflake IPO? And the chatbot is going to tell us here. So it says September 16, 2020. And that's correct, getting from that Wikipedia. And you can also chat with it without even using this questions that are already preset here. So what I can ask it, let's just ask who's the CEO of Snowflake, right? Cool. And it's going to take a minute. And there you go. It retrieved it. And it even tells us when he joined the company. So Frank Sultman is the CEO. That is correct. And he joined the company in May 2019. So this is just an example. And so what you can do, you can get your own application as well, just like this, and you can come to see this is a Wikipedia loader, and what it is really, you can pass in what exactly you want to load, what pages you want to load into your application, and you can create an application like this that other folks can chat with. And there's so many other data loaders as well in LlamaIndex, and you come here to the page, you see data loaders. There's so many different types. You can load Google Docs, you can load JSON, MongoDB, GitHub repos,
And
and
I want to
yeah,
point something out here. The most amazing thing about this is look at all these names here, right? There's so many of these. They're all community contributed, right? We really want to for this to be the hub for the open source community, right? To come contribute and to say, hey, I have this itch. I need to get it integrated with something. I have this file document, right? Like I don't know. You have a Word document from like 1995 or something, right? Like let's make that work. So that's, to me, the most important thing about LlamaHub is the community, right? So actually, I didn't even mention the latest thing that we released. I think it was last week. The data sets. We're releasing publicly open source data sets for people to use, right? So even if you say, hey, I don't want to use LlamaIndex. I've built everything completely custom. I know this thing backwards and forwards. I'm he's only got experience since January. I have experience since GPT-1, right? Okay, that's fine. Use our
yeah.
data sets, right? Help you build a better system and then contribute back.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's amazing that you captured that. And for folks, there's literally like everything in there. It's like a candy store for for most of the developers here, and you'll find everything that you need here. And it's pretty interesting to see what other people are contributing in here. So you have everything from data sets, you have everything from data loaders to agents tools to the packs themselves. So you can spend a whole day here and build some really cool stuff that folks will really enjoy as well. And yeah, absolutely. For me, I really enjoy kind of jumping in here and looking at some of this stuff for sure. All right. So that was my demo. Now we'll switch over to Yi's demo. And before you even demo Yi, we'll kind of go over a few things here first. And I think the main thing here is you guys recently partnered with Google and did some amazing stuff with Google Gemini, and that's something that came out recently as well. And you guys were pretty fast, create some cookbooks on how to build some of this cool stuff. And the most important thing here is that I guess that captured most folks' attention is the multimodal RAG applications to begin with. So let's first of all define what multimodal is, because that could just be another buzzword for most folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So multimodal, I think, is super exciting. We have this engineer, Howten. He's done some really great work on it. The basic idea with multimodal is that why should the LM be limited to a text interface, right? And the answer is it shouldn't, right? Because there's so much other useful data out there. There's useful ways for people to communicate out there. So what multimodal is saying, okay, can we have images in the LM? Can we have video in the LM? Can we have audio in the LM? I don't know how many of y'all saw Google's demo of like that, like sort of real time video and audio, and then everybody's like, oh, afterwards, like, oh, hey, this thing is fake. Okay, I'm here to
Yes.
tell you, it does not matter that it was fake. Okay,
Yeah.
because here's what's going to happen in 2 years. That's going to be real. That's going to be a real demo. Like that in 2
Yes.
years, you're literally going to be able to show the LM a video and talk to it. And that's just super exciting. That's just like, you just think about like these things now that you can just interact with them in a very, very natural way, in the same way that, you and I are interacting right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think multimodal is absolutely very exciting, and we're definitely very excited to partner with Google Gemini. We also have integrations with GPT-4V. We also have integrations with the open source Lava model. So I think there's a lot to be done there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think I might challenge you a bit on your prediction there. You say in the next 2 years. And you can correct me if you say it within the next 2 years, because that would encompass time from now to 2 years. But I feel like it's going to happen much more faster than we can anticipate, actually,
It
because
could happen even
it's wild.
faster. It could happen even faster.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So I'm
Awesome.
going to share just a very, very quick multimodal demo that I did with Streamlit.
Right.
And this is really okay. I don't know why it's there we go. Got it. So
Cool.
so this is like literally true story. I was up late fixing a bug last night. And like coming back home at 10 on the train. So I didn't have time to work on this, right? And then this morning I'm like, crap, I have to get this demo. so I bust out Caroline's Streamlit LlamaIndex demo, and I'm like, okay, I got to just get this thing working with multimodal. And within 20 minutes, I'm not joking. Within 20 minutes, build this GPT-4v clone with Google Gemini. So you have we're oops, I actually have to start that.
Yeah.
The
demo gods are still with us.
Yeah. Let me start that. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, you see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
yeah, you can zoom it in a bit.
Okay, zoom this in. Is this better now?
Yep.
Okay,
that's
cool.
Better. Yep.
So basically, you can just ask this a question. So you just like describe this image, right? And it calls Google Gemini.
Yeah.
And it gives you a description, right? So now you're like, okay, well, this is like sort of like, whatever, right? Like we've actually had image to text models for a while, right?
Yeah.
So, but then you notice something here. It says it's an alleyway in New York City, and then you're like, huh? Why is this an alleyway in New York City? Right? Is it?
Yeah.
So you're like, are you sure? What city is this in? Okay, let's try this again. Right? Is it hallucinating on me? Right? Like what's going on? Right? Like, okay. Well,
potentially.
It's very, very confident that this is in New York City. Okay. So since I'm doing this in Chrome, I can actually do an image search, right? So I'm right here. So I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna go search for this image. So search image with Google. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. And then okay, well, yeah, this is a photo, right? So let's see. Oh, it is in New York City, right? It's in Tribeca, actually. So this is the really, really cool thing about these models, right? It's not just a describer, right? And you can say like, you can say, well, what colors are the signs, right? So like they don't talk about the signs in the description at all, right? Actually, I haven't tried this. But let's see what Gemini says. Let's see what Gemini says.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But it
says it's red and white, which is correct, right?
Nice.
So so it's not just like a image to text thing. It actually understands the image, which I think is super exciting. The other thing I think is super exciting is that like building this with Streamlit was super easy, right? So like this is all of the code, right? We'll share this. We'll share this in the chat in terms of this is MIT license. Go ahead, do it. But it's like this is the entirety of the Streamlit code, and half of it was Caroline's. Half of it was her demo code that I just adapted. So really, really easy. Really, really good developer experience with Streamlit. This is the kind of thing that like, hey, like your boss is like, hey, I want to show me something with multimodal. You whip this up, and then like, you're in like half an hour, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go home for the week. Right?
Yeah, like I got it here ready for you.
I got it already. Yeah. Oh, it was so hard, boss. That was so hard. Yeah. I spent all week working on this. So
exactly.
Yeah. Now, of course, this is this image chatbot. This is just sort of like the basic part of what Hao Tian has built, right? So if you look at the full notebook, he has a bunch of other things where like you can do image comparison, you can do structured output parsing from the image, which I think is super interesting, right? So basically, you take this, you take this Google map and you get the exact, like this is literally a screenshot of Google Maps, and you get the exact information about the restaurant and how many stars it has and what type of food it is. So super interesting. I highly encourage you all to check it out. It wouldn't be that much more work. It'd probably be another 20 minutes to put some of the stuff right in that demo there. And then we get to retrieval augmented generation, multimodal. And with multimodal retrieval augmented generation, now you can think about, well, now I have a database of images, right? And now I can use those images as my context. We are just at the start of that. We are just at the start of what is possible, and we are actively researching this. In fact, there's some stuff that we're going to put out very soon that will be really interesting about, different ways to think about retrieval augmented generation when it comes to multimodal, or what do we call it? BOWS, right? Better output with search in the multimodal end. So,
correct. Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. Just kind of see the development there. It's been rapidly evolving, and I think that now the more people are focusing on it, I'm expecting to see some really wild use cases here. One that comes to mind, and I think I did some research a bit. I think Netflix kind of did something of this sort, where they, instead of like somebody parsing through the entire video, you know how they create the trailers for like whatever movie that's coming out. They've already shot the video, and they're just trying to pick out specific scenes to give it to folks so that it's snappy and fast and very exciting. So maybe the James Bond movie, for example, and they just want to pick out the explosion pieces and clump them together, maybe with when he's climbing a train or something. It's going to get to the point where you just load up an entire video and tell it, hey, just give me the scenes where there's explosions or where there's people climbing cars or whatever, and you can extract that.
I mean, it's absolutely going to be possible. It's absolutely going to be possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. And for the demo that you did, I know you used Google Gemini for that, especially with the map when Wei was able to retrieve the restaurants, the prices, and things like that, even like the star ratings. Would that also be possible if we use something like OpenAI's visual model instead of?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. There's some differences between the two models. There's some really interesting differences from a research perspective. Gemini is essentially, you can think of as like more multimodal native than GPT-4V, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And all of this is, once again, very, very active research, right? So I expect next year that these models are just going to get even better, like that next step up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if the truth holds with the leakage we got from OpenAI of GPT 4.5, I think that'll be another wild. I think the interesting thing there was the 3D. I was like, okay, who's gonna like how does that even look like? Is it more of like architects building that? I mean, 3D. It could be anything. I've seen some the data set that Meta released as well for like for the robots, where like I guess first person point of view and kind of those type of things. I think those are also interesting things to consider.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this kind of, I guess, leads to the next kind of most important part. Maybe somebody has built some of these applications, right, with RAG, and they're testing it locally and it works perfectly. They love it. They want to push it to production and get it ready to serve and get people excited about it. So Jerry, your CEO, did a very interesting talk recently on Snowflake Build. And two things kind of stood out from that interview for me. He talked about how you can build more resistant or more robust RAG applications and put them in production, because it's a different thing when you're playing locally and then a million people using it. So he did mention some few techniques for retrieval, especially, and also for the option to fine tune to make the responses better. So what's kind of your recommendation here that you've seen mostly for folks for when they're pushing this applications to production?
Absolutely. So getting applications production ready is absolutely one of our top priorities. We've been talking about it for months and months now. Now, really, the challenge with getting stuff to production, right? So like I said, right, like you can literally build a demo now in 20 minutes and like you blow the socks off of your boss. Okay, but what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to you is, once your boss comes back from Christmas break, he's going to be like, "Hey, that was a really cool demo, right? Okay, well, I'm going to give you 4 engineers. Okay, and now you got to make this thing for real." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, like that worked because because I had run the chat messages ahead of time, right? Like I tried it ahead of time, but now you want me to make this thing work for real. How do you
Yes.
do that? Unfortunately, the unfortunate thing is that when it comes to retrieval augmented generation, there is no God mode right now. Okay, and we know that because OpenAI doesn't even have God mode. Like they released their version of retrieval augmented generation, which is very cool. It does not work on like you give it any arbitrary document. It's not going to parse it in the absolute most optimal way and answer every single question. It doesn't work like that. They did at Dev Day show a very, very cool slide. I'm gonna just share my screen once again here. Okay. I'm just gonna share the entire screen this time, I think. Okay, so this is the slide they did, right? So they basically said, look, what you do is you start with, they say cosine similarity, but you can think of this as like sort of like the 5 lines naive RAG, okay? And then you layer on these strategies, right? So some of these strategies Jerry talked about at Build, all of these strategies you have in LlamaIndex.
Right? I think your slide is not showing.
Oh, it's not showing?
I think.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me share again. Hold on. Share screen. Why? Okay, here. I'll just share it. I'll just copy this over to Firefox. Hold on.
All right.
All right. Entire screen. Try that again. Okay, here we go. So, this work now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the slide, right? And so basically they said, look, you start with this sort of naive RAG, right? Literally, like you can get this in 5 lines in LlamaIndex, and you layer on different strategies, right? And we actually checked. We have all these strategies in LlamaIndex, and they went from, this is a customer that they work with, right? This is their solution architecture team. They went from 45%. They went from 45% accuracy all the way up to 98% accuracy. Okay. Now you're thinking, well, 98% accuracy, they're like problem solved, right? But no, because this 98% accuracy is on this particular domain with this particular data and these particular questions, right? So
yes,
but right now there is no sort of like, hey, give me a data set and I'll get you to 98%. But what we have in LlamaIndex is we have these strategies that you can layer one on top of the other. One particular strategy that I'd like to talk about, and I know we're running a little bit over, so maybe this is sort of like the last thing we talk about, is this idea of the small to big strategy. And the simple way to describe small to big is that basically you're embedding smaller chunks to get more concentrated embeddings, right? So the embeddings are a representation of intention, and if you embed a whole page of text, it might be talking about 5 different things, right?
Yeah.
But if you embed a single sentence, or if you embed like a small paragraph, then you get a very concentrated embedding. The problem with doing this and then just retrieving that is when you retrieve that, you might miss useful information outside of it, right? So a really simple example is you can say, like, you have 3 sentences. Let's say you have a sentence that says Streamlit is a developer tool, right? And then the second sentence says it's owned by Snowflake. And the third sentence says, Streamlit is completely a MIT open source. Okay? Now, if the question comes in and it says, which company makes Streamlit? Okay? Which company makes Streamlit?
Yes.
Guess what it's going to do in terms of the top embeddings, the ones that match the most? It's going to actually match the first and third sentence. It's going to miss that second sentence that actually has the information in it. Why? Because in the data corpus that these models were trained on, Streamlit is a very uncommon set of tokens. It's a very uncommon word, right? So it's going to match on the sentences that have Streamlit. So this idea of going from small to big, embedding small but retrieving larger, is a strategy we see used time and time again. In fact, even for images, we have some cool things that we're cooking up. Because you can think, like images, once again, it's like you want to retrieve the image. It's a big thing, right? Yeah. But if you just embed the text that represents the image as one big chunk, it might not work as well, right? So embed small, retrieve big. If there's one sort of advanced production level strategy that you remember that one.
Wow, I think that's a very interesting technique, and I mean it makes sense to be able to embed at the sentence level. That way, it retains most of the context, and then you're able to also open the window up when you're kind of setting it to the LLM for the context, for the general context. So I think this is a very interesting strategy, and it's great to see that actually it's helping more. And I'm sure there's also like so many other strategies that that we've heard. And I think for me personally, I think Jerry has been kind of like the leading voice for me in terms of like kind of some of this experimentation and ways of kind of doing it. I've listened to most of his talks, and he does cover these topics like very in depth and very well. And I also have to commend you all for like the amazing documentation on this stuff. Um, and for the, for the listeners, some of this stuff that you've mentioned, these techniques, are they kind of baked in the LlamaIndex framework itself?
All of these techniques are baked into LlamaIndex framework, and we are actively working on these, right? So a couple of things that I highly recommend. Look, dig a little bit deeper, right? Go beyond the 5 lines, right? Look at Jerry's thing about, building a RAG from scratch, so you can really understand how RAG works underneath the hood. Look at Logan's, low-level component series, right? So really, there's so many strategies. The problem is we can't be like, hey, this is one size fit all, just like we'll do it automatically for you, right? You have to layer them on top of each other, just like OpenAI does, right? Like literally, like that was slide from OpenAI's team. That's what they did. So absolutely, we have a bunch of these strategies. We are building more. We would like more feedback on, but we've heard from real customers that say, hey, for production use, like we are definitely using these strategies. We're definitely using, either a small to big or a re-ranker, or I mean, we don't have enough time to talk about all of them today, but we are using a bunch of these strategies, and it really does help performance.
Awesome. Yeah, this is great. And I think something that Jerry usually mentions within this specific context is, for any developer or does building with some of this stuff, go ahead and build your RAG from scratch. And the good thing, like you all provided a template tutorial. Here's how you build one. I think it makes a lot of sense for somebody to build like from scratch, so they understand like the inner workings of it. By the time they get to building their understanding the bigger context.
Yeah, and it's a community effort, right? It's an open source project because we know that we don't know everything, right? We want people to give us ideas and say, hey, we tried this and it actually works really well, right? Yep. And if you do that, we'll shout it out and we'll promote it, right? We are actively looking for people who have these ideas that say, hey, I tried out this document, right? And it has a different format. Send that to us, right? We'll promote it. We'll put it in, we'll put it on LlamaHub. We really just want the community to succeed in taking this stuff from demo, right? Because literally you can build a demo in 20 minutes with Streamlit today, which is amazing. And the most amazing thing is it will be better than the stuff that we built for 8 years, right? So like but going from demo to production, right? To getting it to production use where, you can really actually have customers and they can, ask all kinds of weird questions, because that's what customers do, right? They stress your system in all kinds of weird ways and it'll still work.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess just to close out this piece, there's also like the fine tuning of the embedding model itself. Have you seen any improvements, I guess, comparison between the two?
So, fine tuning is a very interesting area. Also, fine tuning is a very interesting area. I would say that it's sort of like this application developer versus data scientist mentality, right? So fine tuning is much more about hey, look, I'm going to create a better model, and if that's what you're interested in, by all means, go for it. Even after you create the better model, though, you have to think you still need to apply the retrieval augmented generation technique, right? You still need to actually give it more context. So fine tuning is definitely part of it, but what I do see a lot of people is they think of it more like a traditional ML approach, where they're like, well, the way to get better performance out of this is fine tuning, and I think people should look at prompt engineering and RAG first. And that's and that's not just me. That is what the folks at OpenAI do, right? So look at the prompt engineering and RAG first, and then you can add fine tuning to get better performance. There's actually another slide, that I need to search for, but they talk about their journey, right? Basically, how they sort of zigged and zagged between prompt engineering, RAG, and fine tuning.
Fine tuning. Yeah, that's a very good point. Kind of maximize the output first before you even try to apply any other advanced techniques. So that's really good. And I know we kind of running short of time, but at the end of there's a very interesting thing that your team also noted, that they see, or you all see, like a transition that as the next step from RAG, it would be agents. So that I found that really interesting as well. And maybe you can touch on it real quick on that one.
Yeah. So we're investing a lot in agents, right? Specifically, but I would clarify that a little bit, right? So not to say a transition from RAG to agents, but figuring out how agents can help RAG performance. And we're actually seeing a lot of very interesting things there. We call them data agents, right? So using agentic flows to help RAG performance. And when you think of like agents are another word that's kind of like, when you first come in here, you're like, what the heck is an agent? Okay. An agent, the only real thing about an agent is that it's using the LLM to do a little bit of thinking on its own, right? Yes. So for example, like in this Gemini release, they talked about they use this chain of thought technique, right? So you can think of the chain of thought technique as a little bit of agentic behavior, right?
Yes.
One of the things we have in LlamaIndex, we've had in for, I don't know, like almost since the start, is this thing called sub-question query decomposition, right? So basically taking one question and decomposing it into different questions so that you can then get better retrieval. So that is where we see the most promising thing with agents. Not necessarily saying, hey, I'm going to build this thing. Although, there's some people doing this, and like, obviously, I don't want to discourage them because I think it's really cool. But I'm saying for like production next year, for production next year, I don't think necessarily that it's like the agents that people are going to build that are in production are going to be the ones that are like, hey, I just give it an instruction and it just goes off and does everything for me, right?
Yeah.
But you can use the LLM to think on its own a little bit, using chain of thought, using decomposition to then get you better results in your retrieval.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really good to kind of get that cleared out, because I think for most folks, some of this stuff, these concepts are pretty new and evolving every day. So I know we've covered quite a lot today, and I want to get to the questions from the audience, in the next few minutes. But just kind of, I want to ask you some few rapid fire questions here, and most of it is mostly to get your story a bit on, or your viewpoint on some of this stuff. So, there's been a lot that's been happening, especially in this space, like it does. So we have Mistral releasing the Mistral 8.7B billion parameter one, and also there's Google Gemini. So where do you see it from your point, from your point of view, and also from your, time working at LlamaIndex as well? Where do you see the field kind of heading towards? What are the big things that people should be looking at as we kind of proceed forward in this space?
Yeah, I think the models are super exciting, and I think what people don't realize is that they're going to get so much better. Like it's we are very, very early stage, I feel like, in this, and there's like this big debate. Like there's some people who are like, hey, we've reached a plateau already, and I totally don't believe that. I totally don't believe that. Why don't I believe that? Because Anthropic, OpenAI, Mistral, they're raising billions of dollars, right? Like, why are you raising billions of dollars unless you think that your next version is just to blow this current version out of the water? And I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see so much more capability in the next couple of years. It's going to be amazing.
That's interesting. And do you see this as once all is said and done down the road, we don't know how many years from now, do you see there being like convergence in all these models getting to a single point at the end?
I kind of don't hope so. I kind of hope actually that the models, they sort of like have different sets of capabilities. What I do hope for is some more sort of polish. Okay, so I have this whole talk. Don't have enough time to go today, but basically, when you implement against these models, you realize that every model has a whole bunch of different quirks. Like they're built by statisticians, right? They're not built as like real products. Even ChatGPT was like just like a demo, really. And the OpenAI folks will tell you, like, we just built it as a demo to see, like, like if it'd be interesting to people. So,
Yeah.
so there's lots of like these like quirks and rough edges that even in terms of like the prompting, like how do you send more than one message to something like Mistral, for example. And so I'd like to see a little bit more like, hey, like let's make this a little bit more developer friendly. But in the meantime, that's part of our job, right? Like we help smooth that out and provide that consistent interface for everything.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And another interesting question that I usually like to ask: where do you go to get your AI news? Because I mean, like we say, things evolve, and you sleep today, you wake up tomorrow. If you go on vacation and turn off your phone for a week, you're definitely miserable behind in this space. So, how do you keep up with all the news?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, Twitter is still irreplaceable when it comes to the AI space, right? Obviously Jerry puts out a lot of content on Twitter, and we are constantly putting out. Lori is putting out a lot of our content on Twitter now. So yeah, it's Twitter is kind of indispensable, and whether you're a researcher, you're following like AK Halleck, on his research stuff, or if you're
Yeah.
working on applications, there's just like so many interesting things, and yeah, it is basically impossible to keep up with all of it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's rough, and I think Twitter, now X, is turning really pivotal for like up to date and fast information, especially in this
Yeah,
space.
absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So I think this is a perfect time to kind of jump into the listener section and kind of get their questions and field some of these questions. So the first one, I'll pop it on the screen, is from a LinkedIn user, and they say, in the fast changing tech world, how does LlamaIndex make sure its RAG apps stay useful and don't become outdated?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, things are changing really fast, and so you will see that we're developing really, really fast also. Um,
Yes.
so so one of the things is that we are constantly rethinking and updating our interfaces, and so there's a little bit of churn, and I apologize in advance for that. If
Yes.
you use our framework or any of the other frameworks, you'll see that the interfaces are changing, and the functionality is changing over time. um, the other part of it is our goal of like, okay, how do we get this stuff really, really working in production ready, right? And so we've spent a lot of effort on that, and we're going to continue to spend effort on that to make sure that the core pieces are going to be working, whether you're using it today or using it 5 years from now.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good point of view to take for folks. And we'll just kind of jump on to the next question here as well, from Nidhi. She says, could you discuss the use cases where we chat with PDF docs that contain text, images, and hyperlinks? I want to see how we build context between text and images, tables, graphs, etc.
Yeah, so we this is a very, very important use case. We actually have a number of different things that we've already published. One thing I would check out is this thing called SEC Insights. So we built this like full sort of production grade application that ingests PDFs that have like things like tables and stuff in that. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Awesome. Cool tools there to explore. Absolutely. I think LlamaIndex would be the best place to check this stuff out for sure. And the next question is from Mateus. Sorry, Mateus, if I got your name wrong. Could you explain the difference between uploading files to GPT or connecting it to the database with actions versus RAG? Is it that RAG puts the data in the long-term memory of AI?
Okay, so very good question, and once again a little bit confusing because now OpenAI has like you can upload files. It's all RAG actually. So if
Yes.
you're uploading a file to GPT, what it's doing is actually retrieval augmented generation. Um, if you're connecting to a database, that's also retrieval augmented generation, and if you're using LlamaIndex, that's also retrieval augmented generation. Now,
Yes.
those there are different applications with different code, and different pluses and minuses, right? Like if you upload it to GPT, it's really easy to do, right? But you're limited on how much you can upload, right? You're
Yes.
limited in uploading a few documents, right?
Yeah.
If you're connecting to a database, the thing you really want to think about is like is there's a lot of like text to SQL stuff, right? Is the SQL being generated good? Is it secure, right? Are you going to leak stuff out of your database? Is it actually
Yeah.
getting good accuracy, right? And then if you are doing stuff with LlamaIndex in like sort of more traditional document management, then there's a whole bunch of other strategies that we've talked about also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess touching a bit on the to point out on the database side and SQL, we did a talk last week with Zane from Vana AI, and they are focusing straight on generating SQL using just plain English. So, Matheus, if you want to go check out that video, it's on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to it more. I think that would answer some of the questions as well. Um, so let's go to the next is another LinkedIn user. What are the increasingly powerful multimodal models implications on performance requirement for vector search and associated data sources? Data stores, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the whole industry is working on this, right? Like when the multimodal models came out, we saw a few vector databases add on multimodal support. But what does that look like? The answer is that we're not entirely sure yet, right? We see people adding this feature and they're doing it in different ways. And we really have to, like, multimodal models are so new. Multimodal LLMs, right? There have been other multimodal models, but multimodal LLMs are so new that there's a lot of really interesting things. So definitely, if you're interested in that, definitely contribute to open source. Like a bunch of these, like, if you're interested in like the vector database and vector search side, there's a bunch of these vector databases that are open source, right? Take
Yes.
a look at what they're doing and see if you can make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it more better than that. And another question here from Jamal. He says, "Does LlamaIndex work with Adept's foundation model for agents?"
So I, I would need to do a Google search, but we work with a wide variety of models, and the interface is actually very simple. So if we don't work with it today, we can make it work tomorrow, or you can submit a PR and make it work tomorrow. It's our interface for interacting with models is very standard and simple. So.
Yep. Awesome. And last question here. So we need to clarify your trademark here. What again was that phrase? Sub question decomposition. I got the idea, but missed the
Yeah.
entire phrase, although I did catch it.
So if you Google for it, it's going to be sub question query engine is the name of the module. So sub question decomposition is basically the idea that you have one question. Like we oftentimes have this thing, right? Like for example, even your question, right? You have potentially more than one question in it, right? You say, what was that phrase, sub question decomposition? Okay, so defining sub question decomposition is part of the question, right? Where can I find more information about sub question decomposition is another part of the question, right? So we often find that in search, if you take a single question and you make it look at different sources using different questions, you can actually get more relevant results. And so that's the concept of sub question decomposition. The particular implementation is called sub question query engine. And yeah, I see your comment here that it's called unpacking. That's another good way to put it.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's the main questions we've got today, and this has been great. So I guess to kind of wrap it up a bit here. So for the audience watching, and how can they learn more about LlamaIndex and maybe some of your work you're doing as well?
Yeah. So definitely check out the open source project on GitHub. Definitely check out LlamaIndex.ai, with the documentation there. But most importantly, come to our Discord, right? We if you have questions, I see other questions that we don't have time to get to today. Come on our Discord, ask the questions. We have lots of people who are knowledgeable about LlamaIndex on Discord. Our developers are all on Discord. I'm on Discord. So yeah, definitely come to our Discord and join the community.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, this has been great, Yi, and thank you so much for joining us today, and also thank you for the listeners for coming in and giving us some really awesome questions as well. So be sure to join us next week on Tuesday. We have another great show coming up next week. We'll be featuring Edward Schmoll from Weaviate, and we'll be talking more about RAGs and vector databases. So with that, happy streamliting, everyone, and thank you for coming in today.
Thanks, Tony.